I think the game has not turned me gay, but made me realize I can be attracted to such a wide spectrum of people because all their characters are so attractive. Someone said it is papers, please, but capitalism. And apparently Sephiroth will appear somewhere in Shibuya. It's a pretty...
No,
I mean,
that's not a thing. You can't say that. Like... Hey everybody, welcome back to the 20M Podcast, the podcast about games and the people behind them. Welcome, my name is Arief, one of your co-hosts of today's episode, and joining me is the illustrious, the amazing, the prolific games journalist, Southeast Asian covering Japan-based superstar, Rino. Rino, how are you today?
That was highly unnecessary, but thank you.
That was highly unnecessary.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing really good. I'm extremely exhausted, but I'm in full Final Fantasy PlayStation gear right now, just prepping my body for Rebirth in a couple. You know, I got the Final Fantasy VII Uniqlo shirt. I got the PlayStation like little thingy. I'm like in
that
full.
That is a PlayStation piece of merch. I always associate that with Kingdom Hearts because it's like I think you did like an outfit thing.
I did. This is like
on ages ago.
Yeah, that was a while ago, but also because like Kingdom Hearts 3 is all about plaid. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, plaid.
Yeah, like every character, Nomura like just forced plaid on every single character, whether it worked or not in Kingdom Hearts 3.
He got over his belts fascination and went for plaid.
What is it with belts and Nomura and just like affixations?
I just think he is like, you know, externally projects as a regular man. Internally, he's into various subcultures. So he's like, oh, I love the punk scene. What if I could just like max that out 10 belts, 11 belts, 12?
Yeah, how many belts does it have, everybody? Let us know. But hey, Rino, welcome to the podcast. As if you're not, I always do it as if you're a guest, you know what I mean? But this is a really exciting episode. I know we want to get into a couple independent games that we've been playing and some stuff that are a bit more gigantic than that in terms of the game zeitgeist. But if y'all are listening to the 20M Podcast for the first time, hey, welcome. Welcome to the podcast about games and the people behind them. What we usually do here is cover a gamut of games and our perspectives on it, mostly through a Southeast Asian context. But last couple weeks have been an awesome week of content. Rino, what's been happening on the podcast that people can potentially listen to after this one if they've missed out already?
Well, the very last episode was a bit of a Valentine's Day special, I suppose we could call it, because we played 2 life sim games. Well, one's more matchmaking than life sim. But so we played Matchmaker Agency, which is a game where I guess it is pretty self-explanatory. You match characters together. And we had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun with it. And you talked about Coral Island, but this is before I played Coral Island. But you loved your first impressions of the game, right?
Yeah, it was really cool. And I think for me, both those games are made in Indonesia. And so it was a return to form to the both of us because both of us love the Southeast Asian indie games ecosystem. And I think a lot of our games career has also surrounded that aspect of the industry. But yeah, it was awesome to hear your thoughts on Matchmaker Agency. It does look like a fun game. I know there seems to be various perspectives online about it. But at the end of the day, it sounded just hilarious. But yeah, Coral Island was really good. But that episode... I was able to play Coral Island. I think you only started playing Coral Island. I want to start this episode off, Rino, by getting some of your thoughts because you've tweeted about it. You've bombarded our friend group chats about Coral Island. What is Rino's perspective on Coral Island after jumping in the first couple hours of the game?
You're so professional when we're recording because like for the folks listening at home, like 10 minutes before the podcast, Arief was just really like getting into me like, I know I give recommendations and you don't take them, but I knew you'd like it. But you know what? You're right. I was very hesitant as a Story of Seasons loyalist. I always hold farming sims, life sims to very high standards. But this game is awesome. It's so fun. There's so many things you can do. Like you're not just planting crops and raising your cows and your chickens, but the mining element has like monsters in there. There's like the trash element that you talked about, where you're not just like cutting grass. You're also just getting rid of trash that's just overflowing on your plot of land. There's the underwater element. I haven't gone that far deep yet, but that part also involves like clearing the ocean of trash, and there's some mystical elements about bringing the coral back to life. I just think it's insane how much there is to do in this game that I'm spending like all my time grinding on this stuff. And it's like, oh, I guess I'll get married at some point. Like, I'm not even talking to the villagers at this. I'm just like hard focused on like maxing out all my skills.
Yeah, I think you're right. The array of things to do in Coral Island was what like really got me. Where I think a lot of games they really ease you into the mechanics and like try to slowly get you into certain things. And maybe it's because Stardew hyper popularized the farming sim like genre, so that um you're kind of used to that pace versus maybe some other like farming sims before that. But you're totally right. It feels like there's so much to do in Coral Island. The map is also really, really large compared to some other games perhaps that I've played. But like, what else is there? What else caught you by surprise? You know?
So the first thing I guess is like I tweeted about this as a joke, and I think the devs saw it and they liked it, but they didn't reply to it because it's a bit insane. But I said that like I think the game has like not turned me gay, but made me realize like how I can be attracted to such a wide spectrum of people because all their characters are so attractive.
I just can't wait for the comments to roll in. It's like, Reno, you're gay, and fucking just like acknowledge it. You know what I mean? Like,
Gender is
what
truly
happened?
a spectrum. This game is actually gender is a spectrum, like the simulation. What happened was, everyone I kept interacting with, especially at events, because the map is so big, and in my first couple of hours, like I couldn't meet everybody, and on the map you've just got strangers. Until you've met them, they don't kind of come up as people. So my first town event was like this cherry blossom festival, and it's just like a gathering of like hot people of all shapes and sizes, which is like amazing. So then I started searching online like all the different characters that are romanceable. There's a merman, Arief. Why do you think I'm so focused on clearing the trash in the ocean? There's a really hot merman at the bottom of the sea.
You know, the steps of like Coral Island made me gay versus Coral Island got me into bestiality. You know what I mean? It's like the slippery slope of this game. You know, I didn't realize that. I didn't know you could potentially romance the like mer creatures in this game.
Well, I didn't know that either, but it was in one of the guides, and I'm not sure if, I mean, the guy could be wrong, but like it's a very motivating factor, and I feel the devs might have done that on purpose. It's like, oh, if you really want to meet this guy, you got to actually like clear the ocean of all this junk, right? And it's quite I don't know if it's like challenge. It is a little bit challenging because you run out of stamina quite quickly when you're like clearing stuff. So I think you need to revitalize like 25 coral areas, and I'm only at like 7 or something. But I'm grinding, man. I'm going for it. I will get there someday.
Yeah, but I think it's obscene. It's obscene because, like, I think we talked about this in the last episode. Like, everybody's hot in this game, and it's like, no, again, not they're your stereotypical like archetypes of characters, and not just in their looks, but in the stuff that they do. Much like most, like, I guess, farming sim games, you always have to have like the person that's also from the city that like came by here and doesn't like life. You have to have somebody who's like a total hippie hipster or whatever, and then you have to have the doctor and all that kind of junk, right? But I think it's a testament to just like the approach to diversity, especially here in Southeast Asia. Like, this is a Southeast Asian development team, and I think a lot of those themes may not be as prevalent in the current slate of Southeast Asian games, right? And so it's just such an awesome leap. It's such an awesome leap to see that kind of aspect represented of just like the wide gamut of people that are there. But yeah, you're right. Like, everybody's flipping. Everybody, I want to date everybody in Coral Island. Like, I don't know how Stairway Games did it, but they're doing it.
Yeah, and the devs, I think we were chatting about this in our group chat. I think they're based in Bali or something like that. And like I kind of made like an offhanded joke about, oh, is this like Bali the simulation as well? But like I mean, there's a character I really like. I think her name is Lily. She's a digital nomad. Like
I haven't got that far.
which is like, yeah, which is like quite funny. So you do get people who, you know, obviously from the land, like the carpenter, and I think the chief or like the town headsman, they're all clearly, you know, Indonesian people. But then you also get like Lily looks kind of like East Asian, like she could be Malaysian, she could be, you know, someone from the US or something like that. And then I guess on the topic of body representation as well, there is one character I really like. Her name is Vicky. She's like the blonde girl with like the purple ends. She has visible stretch marks, and I think they talk. So she's had a child in the game. She's like a single mom, and I feel like someone on Twitter might have did a post about that and went viral. And it was just like, even just little things like that, you know, make people feel seen or make people feel accepted. Know that these characters, you know, they're all attractive in their own way, and I think that is like a very great message to share.
Yeah, I remember before the game launched as well. That was one of the early characters that they shared, and like Coral Island Twitter kind of like blew up on it. But again, it just seems like, and I said this last episode, the people that are advocates for this game are like really hard advocates because of maybe some of the details here as well. So yeah, you're absolutely nailing it. It's just not shoved into your it's not shoved into your crammed down your throat.
Yeah, it just is
but
what it is. Like
it's there.
it doesn't. Yeah, it's there. It doesn't have to be. You don't need to create a whole plot point about it. It's just something that is in the game, which I think is the perfect level of how the representation should be. One more thing that has representation, which I haven't got to that part yet. I think it's quite further down the line. But you can have luwak on your in your farm, as in like the animal. Can't remember what it actually is that poops like coffee beans. Like
oh my
luwak.
God, really?
You can, yeah. I looked this. I was like looking up how to get chickens on my land or something, and then I saw a glossary of animals that were available, and luwak was there. I was like, no way.
That's
the actual
awesome.
thing, yeah, like I think it's a civet, like civet coffee or something.
Yeah,
which is also from Indonesia.
Please educate the 20M podcast listeners that are not from Southeast Asia, that are not from Indonesia, about this, like why we're so familiar with this concept.
Yeah.
Like, what is it, Rino? What is it?
It's an animal that eats coffee beans and then poops it out, and then that kind of ferments the bean, and people actually brew coffee with the poop beans. I don't know what the official term is, but it is expensive. It is a delicacy, and a lot of people do like it. It's just often something that I guess gets a lot of news in the in the sort of the viral for clicks kind of part of the internet. But it is something that people drink in Indonesia, and I just think it's a cool little thing. It's like, what else can you symbolize? Like, it's beyond just cows and chickens and all your like generic animals. Let's add a civet. Let's add a luwak. Very cool.
That's like genuinely super cool. Again, that's so Southeast Asian, but it's like, like of course they have to put that in. It makes so much sense.
If they have a durian tree, I'm gonna lose it. If we can plant durian trees,
I'm 90% sure you can.
Surely, right?
I'm 90% sure.
Yeah.
At Stairway Games, if you didn't, y'all messed up.
Yeah, DLC, just a durian loadable content.
Yeah, but I think on the serious note, it's really interesting because I think I'm a huge. This is a relatively related, relatively unrelated one, right? But Zoo Tycoon is one of my favorite games of all time. So I love like management sims, but like zoo specific management sims. And Planet Zoo is kind of like this almost like a spiritual successor to that franchise, where they've been doing really well from themselves. They have multiple expansions, but it's quite funny how like that's. Not to say that it's comparable to Coral Island, but it's just this concept of like they have a Southeast Asia expansion pack, right, for that game, and that one is very much like, here's all your Southeast Asian goodness in one DLC pack, and then you'll get the whole array of animals that are probably more familiar from that region, right? But I think in that way, it is very much like a very typical, like you kind of expect that stuff when you have games that are maybe multicultural or coming from different parts of the world. It's just so cool to find those things a bit more naturally. I think, again, relatively related, relatively unrelated. I was listening to the Game Maker's Notebook, one of my favorite podcasts about game development, and even the developers of oh my god, what's that like 2D Souls-like game made in Spain? Blasphemous? Yes,
sounds about right.
Blasphemous. Like there's so much culture in that game that like if you're from that region, but that region of Spain, people resonate and identify, but it's again it doesn't beat you over the head with it. It's just the infusion of culture of what a particular population or maybe people who are familiar with that region is more acclimatized to, and then you embed that in your game, and then it just services everybody. So I just love this aspect of maybe those are two relative comparables that reminded me of just having these aspects of representation in Coral Island.
The last thing that I will add about games like Coral Island is, when you get into the rhythm of things, it feels really good, right? You're like hitting the buttons, you're like, mining or whatever it is. It just feels really great. I took a break, maybe like 5 days in between two plays, and I lost the muscle memory for it. And have you ever felt that frustration where you do something that you didn't mean to do and you lose an item forever or something like that?
Oh, yeah.
So like in the OG like Harvest Moon games, it's very easy to just drop stuff, and you drop stuff, and not only is it like gone forever, like your precious potato that you've been like growing for like 5 days, you drop it forever, and it's like, oh my god, that's like an immediate blow to your bottom line. But it counts as like throwing the trash, like littering. So people in the town, actually their hearts go down because they think you're like littering, even though it's like, oh my god, like that's not what I want to do, and then you're like trying to like grab it, but it's gone. So I did something similarly stupid in Coral Island, which is, I don't think it's like a claim against like bad UI. I think it's just me being an idiot. But like in the shop, when you go and buy seeds, the button to buy and then the button to sell is like really close to each other. So I bought like 9 seeds and then I sold them back to the guy for like 10 like coins cheaper. Like immediately. And I'm like, this guy must think I'm an idiot. Like what did I just do? I'm just like,
it's like, here's your bag of seeds, and it's like, yes, but I would also like to sell them back to you. It's like,
or cheaper. Oh my god.
no, I get it. That's a funny one as well, because I haven't fully acclimated to Coral Island's UI either, because I'm playing Coral Island on my Steam Deck as well. So I mean, because like I think Stardew I played on mouse and keys, so maybe it was a little bit more intuitive. So there's some moments where it just hasn't clicked properly from a move around standpoint, from a maneuverment standpoint. But at the end of the day, that's just like you just got to invest a little bit more time in the game. But that's flipping hilarious when there's like consequences and just stupid stuff that you do on accident. And you're just like, well, I don't want to reload the whole save, because like I'll start in the morning again or something along the line. Yep.
Yeah.
Funny.
Times.
What else? Game. What else? Coral Island. Final thoughts on Coral Island. Do you think you're going to keep playing it because we have so many games that are coming out? Like, where does this lie? Because you're a big like story seasons person compared to me, for example. But like, where does this lie in your list of farming? How does Coral Island compare to games like Story of Seasons to you?
It's really big and exciting, but then sometimes when a game is too big, it has the opposite effect of like, man, when am I going to actually get anywhere? Especially when it comes to relationship management, because in the early parts of Coral Island, I feel like grinding is very important, to get money because you want to buy stuff, you want to expand, and there's so many different directions it's pulling you in. Whereas I guess the OG games are much more simplified, so I feel like you can kind of get more, you can make more progress in a shorter amount of time. So I'm a little intimidated as to how many hours I'm going to need to play to get to my precious merman, for example. Or maybe I should just find, the guy across the road, he's close by, he's easy. Like, just go with that so I can figure out what like the marriage arc is gonna be like and things like that. I'll try to carve out time for it. But yeah, exactly as you said, like, there's so many games to play, so little time. What a tough life we have.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of other games and having a tough life and playing a lot of video games, you told me about a particular game a couple days ago that I have not been exposed to whatsoever. But Rino, tell me a little bit about this game called CorpoNation.
So I want to give a big shout out to a Twitter mutual friend of mine. Her name is Annie, over at Platonic Games. So Annie's been doing God's work of like spreading the gospel of CorpoNation, and it finally came around like release time. So I've known about it for a couple months or a year now. But then this week I was like, oh, it's out. The same week as a lot of big titles. Let me check it out. And CorpoNation, for your reference, I saw a really interesting tweet which would probably resonate with you. And someone said it is papers, please, but capitalism. And then for me, I thought I saw the trailer and I was like, this is 1984 simulation again. So what it basically is, it's like satire on, the mega conglomerates. And I guess it's set in some kind of dystopian future where you kind of like live at work and go to work. You live in like this little cubicle thing. You go to work, you do the work, which is really like menial, like sorting stuff. So you're sorting samples. And so the gameplay in the beginning is just like, I think there are like 4 types of samples. You're just like pushing it into different funnels, which is very simple. And then later on, you get more types of samples. Later on, they add more mechanics of like to make the sorting more complex. But that is like your job. And then at the end of the day, like based on how well you sort it, you get your salary, which is like 100 cents, 157 cents, like really, really small amounts. And then you go back to your cubicle. And it's just so funny, but in a really dark way. Like you're an employee, you don't see anyone, all your communication is via email, but because you're a new employee, as part of the new joiner thing, how like when you join a new company, you get like a buddy system. Yep. So you kind of have this, but because you never see anyone, your buddy system is just like in a chat. It's like a group chat. So it'll just like pop up there and be like, like Max 2950 says, hey, I'm your new chat buddy. And like, that's kind of like how you get inducted into the company. And as you're like accruing money and stuff, you can like buy furnishings for your place and all that. And the posters say things like work is dignity. We love work, all these kind of like funny parodies. But at the same time, you have to remember that you have to pay rent for your pod. You have to pay for the food capsules that sustain you. So you're constantly like having to measure like how saving money, but also you want to be able to like buy stuff for your cubicle and all of that. And there is a storyline. So you're doing this day in day out, but there is a storyline where every now and then you get like a glitch. I haven't got that far in, but you get like a glitch, and it clearly there's some kind of anarchy movement happening within the company, and they're trying to like wake the sheep up of like, have you thought about why you're doing this? Isn't life meaningless? Just little emails would come through like that, and then after that your manager intercepts them and is like, oh sorry, like that was a mistake, like
oh, I love that
stuff like that. So I think ultimately there is an end goal of where you can kind of like topple the organization, but I haven't really got that far yet. So it's really interesting.
That's such a good pitch. That's like, I was looking at the trailer as well, as per what we usually do on the podcast here, right? But it's like, that sounds awesome, but also it's this art style. It's like, again, it's so focused, and you can tell that there's a vision here, but it also looks extremely engaging and new wave, because I think a lot of games in this kind of like, in this vertical, I don't even know how a publisher would probably be yelling at me because they have like the perfect term to describe this game, right? But the game where you're like you're maneuvering a screen basically, and that's pretty much the gameplay, and the story elements are like how you get off of the interactions of it, of what's on screen. But like, it looks so 2024. Where there are some games where like they make it feel like it's the 80s, they make it feel like it's in a certain time frame. I think there are some maybe nostalgic aspects to the UI here, but there's something about this art style where it's like it's really clean, crisp, and it just feels hyper intentional, and it just looks it looks like this game came out in 2024, which is awesome. But yeah, it seems like it has such a strong sense of tone. But I'm so curious about what this game is actually trying to say and how they use like you're a flipping raccoon, no?
Like, we're not the mascot of the company.
Okay, there we go.
A raccoon named Ringo.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, what does that mean?
What does that mean?
What does that mean, Rino? Come on.
I think I love the premise of the game. I love being able to talk about it. It's clearly a very smart game, like about making some kind of comment about capitalism, about how we're all slaves to our corporate overlords. It really hit close to home for me. Like, obviously we're not grinding in that sense, but when you strip back a lot of the work that we do for companies or a lot of our past jobs or internships, you do see a lot of commonalities in things like companies saying, oh, we're all a family, or like, oh, a thing in the game is like every day you get sent a survey, and if you do the survey you get 10 coins, so you kind of want to do it every time because you're like honestly stupidly poor. And the survey is things like, oh, do you agree with the slogan of the company, this, that? And so I started to fill it out, like reading it, and then after that I gave up. I was like, I'm just gonna disagree with everything. And then the next day I got an email that was like, oh, you're banned from doing the surveys because like you're not upholding the brand values.
Oh.
So it's like, I can do them, but I'm not getting paid anymore. So stuff like that. So there's obviously a lot of this kind of messaging, but I think it's also still like a very niche genre, or sort of like a niche game. Some people don't like to be reminded of these things, right? And the sorting element, some days where nothing happens, it feels a bit monotonous, and it's like, well, that it's actually capturing the monotony of work, but then we're playing games because we don't want to be reminded of that. So I can see some people not enjoying that aspect, but if you're kind of approaching it from the experience of like, kind of the way you're like reading a book like Animal Farm or something like that, you're not super comfortable about it all the time, but there's clearly a message behind it.
Yeah. I mean, it just sounds so engaging. And again, like you said, like where the game could go, where the gameplay could go, and all the different permutations, the way that you describe that makes it sound so exciting as well, compared to like your traditional maybe routes of gameplay and barriers or whatever have you. That sounds flipping awesome. I genuinely, like, I know we always say we're going to play the games that we talk about on the podcast when one of us doesn't, but this genuinely skyrocketed in terms of like something I need to try within the next 7 days for sure.
Yeah, I want to get more into it so I can give like a proper analysis of it, because this is just like a first impressions thing. But what it made me realize was it made me realize my own behavior. So when I first started the game, I wanted to do everything perfectly. I wanted to get the perfect score with sorting, no mistakes. And then you get like a ranking as well, like 3 stars. I wanted to work overtime when I realized that I wasn't earning enough money. So I would do overtime and then I would get like 20 coins more and be like, what is this, And then as I kept playing, I think I played for like a couple hours this morning and I got a bit more frustrated. And I just went one day, I just like, this, and I just like mis-sorted everything, just like threw all this junk everywhere. And then in the elevator I realized like before there were buttons on the side which I just thought was like just the interface. I was like, wait, I can click on them. So I started like spamming up, down, and then like it wouldn't let me. It just kept saying like, oh, error, error. Then I pressed the emergency button, and then like someone stops the elevator, and then they're like, oh, deduct 10 coins for wasting our time because there was no emergency. So clearly I was like, oh wow, I'm starting to rebel just from like 2 weeks in this facility. And I was like, I wonder if that's kind of intentional because it's starting to mirror what like the anarchists like kind of like messaging me things, right? So I wonder if that's just me being like bored at a certain point and just trying to like mess around with the game, or whether that's kind of like the game has like guided me to this point where I'm like so bored and I really want to like get to this arc where like I do something, let me do something. But it's like interesting how like my own personal feelings started to intertwine with what the game was trying to convey.
Yeah. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. I'm so excited. No, but like it's super cool because I think like these types of games, like you said, that have this overarching like capitalism is bad, you're like wake up and you're in the system that is supposed to screw you over, has so much meaning towards it. But there's these wacky elements, like you said, that it's funny and it's wacky and it's humorous and it's ridiculous, but there is a larger like message behind these kinds of aspects, right? So I'm just really excited. I mean, the last one that I did that was relatively similar was the Steam Deck again, like Aperture. I forgot what the actual title is, but it's the test demo for the Steam Deck. And again, the Portal world about like capitalism and like the robots governing everything kind of a scenario is really reminiscent of it. But again, it really just puts you in these shoes of, I don't know, just shitty corporate like routine life or whatever have you, but in its most extreme way. So I love when games kind of challenge it, but also like make gameplay elements around it, rather than like you said, something that you just read from a novel, right, or consume in a film. It's like you have that agency to rebel, right? You're literally trying to like whether it be intentionally or not intentionally, like screw around with the system, which is a fascinating aspect about the game's medium as well.
Yeah, I think it's great. I'm gonna keep trying it. And I just wanted to shout out, I think I didn't mention earlier. So the developers are an indie studio called Canteen Games, and the publisher is Platonic Games. So they're both based in the UK, I believe.
Yeah.
But yeah, great game. Honestly, I think writing satire is like one of the hardest genres to tackle. Like it has to be convincing, has to be tasteful, has to be funny, has to be all these different things. And I know it won't resonate with everyone, and then it'll resonate a bit too much with some people. But yeah, definitely worth taking a look.
Yeah, no, super exciting. And I mean, like, I'm not too familiar with like the slate of Platonic like published games, because I think for me, it's like Platonic are ex-Rare devs, and you know, like my love for Banjo-Kazooie sees no ceiling, and I flipping love my platformers, and I flipping love like that era of video games. I didn't try Yooka-Laylee, but I know that one is like cult. Like a lot of people who love that genre and love that team love Yooka-Laylee. But I think it's quite fascinating. I'm like looking through their catalog right now, where it's like they all seem to have a similar tone of the games that they publish, but CorpoNation does look a little bit of like a departure from it.
Yeah,
but maybe some of the other games
so.
in their slate like maybe also have some undertones. But yeah, I'm genuinely excited to see like what other games like Platonic can scout and publish from this aspect, because man, this one looks great. And I'm excited to see what the devs do here as well.
Yep, very cool. Definitely want to watch.
Yeah, well, let's shift gears. And whilst we're talking about capitalism, let's talk about Shinra, CorpoNation, and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. But more importantly, just like I just wanted to acknowledge this. Like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is around the corner, and you're in Japan. And I saw you tweet a couple things, and the internet has been like literally exploding about Tifa's swimsuit outfit in Casa del Sol. So like,
what about Aerith? Why is no one talking about Aerith's swimsuit costume? Does she not get any love?
You tell me, Rino. You tell me. Like, what's going on with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth? I just want to use this time on the podcast to acknowledge this. I have yet to play the demo, which I've just been stacked with other commitments. But I really want to jump in. But it's literally like a week away from launch. Like, what's going on in Japan with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth?
That's so like Japan correspondent, like, over to you, Reno, over in Tokyo. And I'll be like, hello.
Because we did the Skytree thing last, like notes on the fact that they were doing a Skytree Tokyo Tower, sorry. Is that
Tokyo Tower?
No,
Tokyo
sorry.
Tower is what they're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Skytree was Genshin, I think.
Yes.
Which was what we talked about last time.
Yes.
But I got them both mixed up because like I kept Googling Final Fantasy Skytree and it would show me the remake activation from 2020. I was like, no, like why is this website so outdated? I was like, oh wait, I got the two towers mixed up. But yeah, so I think in Japan, like if you like obviously if you go to all like the stores that sell video games, like your Big Camera or your Yodobashi, everyone's got like the game is like front out and center, pre-order and all that kind of stuff. But in terms of like in like other like more creative activations, the one that I've seen is so the one that we just mentioned, which is the Tokyo Tower Word Rally and pop-up store. I don't know why it's called a word rally. Basically, you buy a ticket, you get into this area of Tokyo Tower. It's not the entire Tokyo Tower, like just a section of it. And you need to find the 6 characters, which are just like your, cardboard standees.
Yep.
You find 6 of them, and then you get like a metallic print of some sort. It's like, okay, cool, that's fine. And then you go to the pop-up store, and I know I'm not like a sucker for merch, you know what I mean? I try not to buy stuff because in Japan, once the floodgates, once you open them, you just end up buying merch all the time, right? But this one, we'll put it up on the screen or something. It's really, really cool. It's the Cloud Sephiroth Zack image, but the backdrop is Tokyo Tower. And so it just looks really impressive. And even though the game is obviously not set in Tokyo or anything like that, it feels really apt. And I think if you go to that pop store, you can buy, posters or clear files or keychains with that key visual, which I think is very, very cool. So that's the Tokyo Tower one. The second one that everyone is talking about is the train one. So if you take the Yamanote line, which I guess is like kind of like the LRT in KL in a way, but except much, much wider. It's like it takes you within the key areas of Tokyo. There's the wrapping around the trains on the outside, so at the doors, and then on the inside there's posters as well. But what makes it really interesting is they're doing the like Cloud, Aerith, Tifa, all the folks from the original Final Fantasy VII, and then right next to them is their rebirth form, which is them today. So
that's so cool.
Yeah, super cool. I think they're trying to be like track the history, which this 27-year history of this franchise, and also introduce like old fans and fans. If you're a new fan, maybe you've not seen what they look like from back then in 1997, I think. Or if you're an old fan, you want to kind of look back and be like, wow, like how far we've come.
Yeah, and the symbolism of the train, because Final Fantasy VII starts with the flippin' train, and they did that like Final Fantasy remake. They did one of their activation things at like E3 or Tokyo Game Show or something like that. What they had that experience in the train itself for media and press and all that kind of stuff. Like trains also play a weirdly important kind of like aspect of Final Fantasy, paving the way for the future. The railroads are set, or are they? Because in the Final Fantasy lore, we don't know what's going on in Rebirth and Remake. Like, if they're parallel tracks, is it the same track? I don't know. I flippin' love Square, man. I flippin' love Square.
There is like one last thing that is, I think it's dropping on Monday, which is apparently Sephiroth will appear somewhere in Shibuya. It's a pretty.
No,
I mean,
that's not a thing. You can't say that. Like,
no. So I was telling my friend about it, and we both got really excited. But then we paused for a second, and we're like, "Wait, is this another asset reuse case?" Because they did the same thing at Tokyo Game Show, which last year, which we both attended, which is that scene of Sephiroth and Nibelheim with the flames engulfing him. I think they're gonna put that somewhere in Shibuya, but we've already seen it. But at the same time, of course, we're all gonna want to go and see it again because who knows where they're gonna put it. I think that's happening on Monday.
I'm thinking about like, and I know Advent Children is also re-released in theaters. I think some limited in the US, but mostly like very wide in Japan. But it's just reminding me of Sephiroth descending after being like reformed. It's like Sephiroth will appear in Shibuya to cause, like literally descend. Like the one-winged angel will cause evil and chaos and like destroy the planet.
There'll be like a small like band on the side, like orchestra band playing like.
Man, I love it. I mean, the ones that I've just been reacting to over here in Kuala Lumpur is more so just like it's not Kuala Lumpur specific. It's just the fact that I'm outside of Tokyo is just everybody talking about Tifa, and I love all the jokes. And it even started before. Like, I genuinely think Tifa has to be the most popular character in Final Fantasy VII. Like, there's no doubt about it now in the current like community of like gamers and the zeitgeist of 7.
Come on, what about Vincent?
Dude, there's no way Vincent is the most. I'm talking about like hyper popular characters. Like Tifa takes that number one spot. Of all time,
or you mean within 7?
Like within 7, within the current culture of video games. Like everybody talks about flipping
Get
Tifa.
Vincent Valentine in a bikini, and then we'll talk.
And then
Come
we'll
on.
yeah, exactly. I mean, the fact that people are berating like the Tekken developers to get Tifa on there, and I also know Harada-san is like openly like, I think one of the funniest tweets was like, "How do you get Tifa in Tekken?" It's like you befriend Shinji Hashimoto, like senior executive brand manager of Final Fantasy. I
Yeah.
actually think he retired recently.
He
And then
wrote
you
like a whole bunch of lists, right?
Yeah,
I
then
think.
be friends with Nomura, and then like it's like flipping hilarious.
And at
only
the
you
end,
can get
he's just
Tifa.
like, it's impossible. Basically, it's impossible, something like
Yeah,
that.
it's almost like adding Kingdom Hearts to any other property. It's like it's literally impossible. But no, I just like, again, people have just been like just flipping thirsting over Tifa like 24/7 on my timeline. Maybe that says more about my timeline and my personal
Outing
thirst
yourself.
for Tifa. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like
I don't know what you're talking about. I've never seen anything like that.
Yeah, but I just think it's like, again, I'm really excited for 7, and my close to 7 is just more so like this segment of the game is a very funny, wacky, like period of that overall story for those that have played 7 in its entirety, where Midgar and the intro, there are wacky elements and there are, fun aspects to it, but this one, things really derail, but things also get really serious. So all I'm going to say is that I'm really excited for Rebirth, and I can't wait to be engulfed in the Sephiroth flames and video game culture. But it's just so cool to see a property that is so, like, objectively one of the most popular video games of all time, right? Like, kind of see a second life, or at this point, it's like it's in its fourth life, or whatever.
Be reborn, you mean?
Yeah, be rebirthed. You know what I mean? Into like, yeah, but I don't know, man. Like, I'm just excited. I'm really excited for next week.
Yeah. Happy Final Fantasy VII in advance to all those who celebrate.
Well, with that said, Rino, is there anything else that's happening with you this past week, this upcoming week, or do you want to leave anything to the 20M podcast audience?
Well, I guess while everyone is waiting for big game to drop, check out some of our past episodes where we cover some of the smaller titles, indie, I think a couple episodes back, Arief waxed lyrical about his favorite game, Persona 3 Reload. So there's a whole bunch of other stuff to play while you're waiting for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Check them out.
Absolutely. And go click on that episode right now. I really hope that they clicked on it and then and then it goes through the next intro where it's like, Reno's a Genshin loser. And this episode we cover, you know what I mean? Like that episode. All right, bye-bye, everybody. Thanks for joining us on this
everyone.
one. Bye-bye.
See ya.